Hello my dear philosophers, this is me Sagar Ali and you are watching the Sagar Ali YouTube channel. In our recent video, we had discussed the philosophy as well as its branches. But in this lecture, we will discuss how philosophy is distinguished from science. Alright, so I'm going to use slides on my laptop, then I will explain you facts and figures one by one. Alright, so let's discuss how philosophy is distinguished from science. So, science began in philosophy within Aristotle about 2352 years and stayed within it in philosophy for about 2000 years. Alright, so for about 2000 years, the organized pursuit of knowledge was only philosophy. It simply means before science, the only subject that pursued knowledge was philosophy for 2000 years. Second thing, science was also branch of philosophy and it remains the branch of philosophy for 2000 years. Alright, next slide. Gradually as science developed, specialists such as physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, astronomy and so on, and it became an independent subject from the philosophy. While philosophy creates knowledge by merely thinking existing God, truth and reality. Alright, so here for 2000 years science was field of philosophy, but later when it created its branches, its cohesive branches, then it became a wide subject. So that's why science became an independent subject after 2000 years. Okay, while philosophy remains to create knowledge by thinking, by merely thinking about existence, about God, about truth and about reality. While in science we study about living thing, non-living thing, atom, even though number system, astronomy and so on. Next slide. Now we will discuss philosophy and science by definition. So as far as you know, definition of science. Science is simple to get knowledge by observation and experiment. While the definition of philosophy that we had discussed in our recent video, the love of the wisdom is called philosophy. Alright, so scientist is a person who mostly follows systematic study. Okay, scientist is a person who follows systematic study. What is philosopher? The lover of the wisdom is called philosopher, and this name philosopher was used by Pythagoras first time. Okay, now next point. Science create knowledge through experiments and observation, and it depends on sense perception. So simply we had studied science. Whenever you want to gain knowledge in science, you need some systematic study such as observation, hypothesis, deduction, reasoning, induction and experiment, then law, theory and so on, and that is called systematic study. Okay, one by one, then at the end you can verify it. Alright, but in philosophy it is based on rationality as well as reasoning. Now what is it? Rationality is simply meant to say ability to make decision, and reasoning reasoning is a process to arrive at that decision. For example, rationality, ability to make decision. How? Thales said the fundamental element of matter is water, so he has rationality about it. Okay, while Anaximander said no, the basic element of no living thing or anything is apron, while Anaximander says no, it is everything is made up of air. And there were so many philosophers who had given their assumptions about rationality, okay, as well as reasoning. Now let's go ahead. Science sees things objectively while philosophy sees things as subjectively. For example, this is shield. Okay, objective reasoning is I will focus on object, but subjective reason is I will focus on my opinion, subjective opinion instead of object. Alright, so for example, if we remember, Thales said basic element of anything is water. So the main point of view in philosophy was the idea, the opinion of the philosopher, okay, instead of objects. So if I say this shield is made up of water, in philosophy it simply means it is my subject to study, it is my own opinion. If I say it is made up of water, it is made up of air, it is made up of something else, and so on, okay, so it is called subject to study. While what is called object to study in science? Well, object to study is quite simple to understand. In object to study we focus on object instead of our opinion. How? If I give opinion about any object and anybody can verify it and anybody can correct me. For example, object to study depends upon facts and figures that can be measured and quantified, okay. Now science begins with assumptions, while philosophy, its questions is all assumptions. For example, in science, assumption, what is called assumption? In science, assumption is simply initial idea or initial hypothesis or prediction. In science, assumption is initial hypothesis or prediction. But in philosophy, assumption is used to build a theory or an argument, okay. So here if I say science discovers new facts, so it simply means it discovers new facts and figures, while philosopher gives a reflection method of subjects. Mostly we control situation in lab. It means in science we control situation in lab by, for example, if we can say hypothesis, then we say observation, experiments, laws and theory and so on. But in philosophy there is something else. There we just focus on opinions, we focus on argumentation, okay. There is no any systemic study. Now more and more question, they are descriptive and possible answers, while objective answers to certain question. Science gives objective answers to every question. For example, 99 questions are possible to answer in science, but in philosophy there are many questions, but there are some sort of, you can say, answers that remains as a question as well, okay. So science versus philosophy. Now we will discuss the idea how we get, you can say, how we follow science system as well as philosophy system. Science as well as philosophy both seeks truth, okay. How? In philosophy they think clearly, but in science know what to believe. So in science you should know what to believe, either it can be wrong or right. But in philosophy you have to think clearly, then you have to give your own opinion, that's all. Now in philosophy, reflection, analysis and argumentation, okay. In philosophy you have to just argue, but in science there is systemic study. You have to observe, then you have to do experiment, later you have to verify it, okay, for a reasoning conclusion. Alright, at the end, how science and philosophy arrive on the conclusion. Philosophy follows principle of logics, while science follows confirmation and experiment by pairs. For example, in science there were so many experiments that had occurred, okay. Some experiments were proved wrong by other pair of experiments. So that's all what we get. If you have any kind of query, you can comment box, even though you can call me on my number. And now go to description, there you can get link to download these slides, and that will absolutely help you in your competitive exams. I hope you like it. Kindly share it to your philosophical friends, okay. See you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.